what I, but the main thing is I want to make sure you all have like actionable stuff you can go do. Because when I started, a big problem I had was I would learn stuff theoretically at Ignite, like negotiation, but then I didn't have a negotiation to do that day. So I was like, neat. And then I would go and sit on my butt and do nothing. And so I want to make sure like you've got good prospecting actions going on. These are really, this really is my first name. This really is my last name. It's not my fault. But go ahead and add me to your phone. And I'm happy to answer questions because the other things I want to make sure you don't feel like you are going at this alone. Keller Williams is proud of our support network, and sometimes we're right to be. Have you all done the Ignite classes up to this point? Okay. Have you gone through Ignite at 3 months? Oh, okay. So just whatever you can get. Sounds good. And then how about you?
Yeah, I come as much as I can, but mostly Fridays.
Okay. So we'll do you have another job then, or
Yeah,
what's the other job?
I manage the FedEx down the road.
Oh, nice. All right. We have 2 managers and 1 mechanic.
No, you can buy that other thing.
I have been unemployed for almost 11 years now. Well, I guess I was actually unemployed for a bit before then. So like, we'll call it 11. We'll call it an even 11. Okay. So, okay, let's talk about negotiation. Basically, there's a couple philosophical things I want to go into, and then there are some tactics I want to talk about. Obviously, negotiation is a very deep topic we can go very deeply on. I don't necessarily want to do that. I want to give you the right amount of information so you leave here equipped to negotiate. And then we were like, heck yeah, got it. Then let's get back together and do negotiation 201 or whatever. There is no mechanism for that happening, but I've done the CNE course, the Certified Negotiation Expert course, 2 times, because the first time I didn't want to pay the additional fee to get the certification. And so then I did it again and I just paid the extra fee. It means nothing. It's letters that I'm allowed to put on my business card that I don't use. And then a lot of my negotiation strategy comes from talking to Dean here. We'll talk about the Dean method. And then also the book Never Split the Difference, I think has really good negotiation advice if you read it. I endorse that book to an extent. There's some things he says that I think don't apply to real estate as well, but overall, principally a very strong book. So the first thing, who decides what a house costs? Like who decides what it sells for? Okay, tell me what you mean.
Because you can list a house for $10 million, but if it's really someone's only willing to buy it for $500 or $5,000.
Okay, that is correct. The other is the seller has to agree to sell it for that price. And so the buyer and seller come to an agreement. You can argue they filter those through their agents, but not really. It's the buyer and the seller are the ones making the decision. And then in the case of, I don't know the actual statistic, but I would guess 95% of sales, there's one other party involved. The appraiser, boom. So here we have the Platonic house. So we have $0 and we have $10 billion. This is a logarithmic scale because I'm not putting all the lines right here. So with this house, you've got your seller and the listing agent is going to sit down with them, and the listing agent has probably done a CMA. Are you guys familiar with CMAs, market reports? Okay. They've probably done CMA. The listing agent probably has in mind, I think this house could sell for X. And then the seller is going to say, well, I want to sell it for Y. And they'll bandy back and forth and they'll decide to list it at, for our purposes, 500,000, which, as you know, is exactly between 0 and $10 billion on a logarithmic scale. So, but then the seller in their head and may even tell their agent this, they'd accept down to like 480 or whatever. And if you dug into this, which I don't recommend, but if you sat down at the listing appointment and they're like, hey, we want to list for 500, but we'd accept 480. First of all, that is not a realistic conversation. No one has ever said anything like that to me. But in their head, there is probably a lower number they'd accept. And if they said, you probably during negotiations, well, I guess we could go as low as 480. If you wanted to needle this, you said, well, would you accept 479, 999? They'll say yes. They're like, what about 479, 998? And the reason I point this out is all of this is murky, right? Because in their head, they've attached 480. There's a couple things that can make it hard. It's like, well, we need to net, $100,000 to make our next purchase. If we don't, we can't do it. Although even that is probably not as hard as they think it is. And so the idea here is this is actually a little bit fuzzy. And then the same thing with the buyer. Hello, welcome. No, you're good. It is. This is my heaviest hoodie. Also, it's snowing today because why not? With the buyer, you're going to have sort of the inverse, but a very similar conversation, right? When you qualify them as a buyer, you most likely have their price maximum, and then most buyers are going to have a lower comfort maximum when they see what the monthly payment resulting from that would be. And so if the buyer's looking at this house and it's 500K and we're in like a hot market where a lot of multiple offers are happening, they say, well, 500K sounds great. And really we could potentially go up to 520K. And all the same things I said here also apply to our buyer, because they would probably accept 520 and $1. And even if the lender gave them a hard limit of 520, they'd probably agree to 520 and $1. So all of this is kind of soft and a little bit psychological. And this area right here is called the zone of potential agreement, right? So if you had an offer coming at like 490, both parties are happy. We're all good with that? Okay. So then here's my question. We have this seller and this buyer. We know the seller's happy to go 480. We know the buyer's happy to go, willing to go 520, which just in this imaginary fairy tale scenario is an exactly mirrored situation. They're both willing to give $20,000 of play. This is a thought experiment. You will never have numbers this clear ever in your whole life. So the agreement they reached then is 510. And that's what they go into contract for. That's what they close for. And the appraiser ratifies the price. So my question is, who won that negotiation? Because they're closer to the buyer's tolerance than the seller's. I think there's an argument that, yeah, the seller won that negotiation. I also would contend they both did because both parties walked away happy. There's this idea in negotiation that like there's even a term for it that I've forgotten. It's like zero-sum negotiation, right? And on something where you have a price where we are clearly moving in one direction or the other, like every dollar added to the price is to the buyer's disadvantage. Every dollar removed from the price is to the seller's disadvantage. So it's easy to argue that, yeah, the seller won this negotiation. The buyer made more concessions than the seller did. However, I think the important thing to remember here is the softness in these borders. Both clients want to feel like they got a good deal, they were treated fairly. And so I would argue that if you're in this deal and you've had a strong negotiation and the buyer's like, yeah, we did it, awesome, fantastic, versus coming down here to 490, and the whole time the negotiations were acidic. The buyer's like, I can't believe they're screwing us over on the kitchen like this or whatever, and they leave pissed off. I would argue they didn't win that negotiation, or rather that you as their agent did not perform your duties correctly. Like, you got them a deal they wanted and you got them happy. That's a bigger win than getting a mathematically superior deal, but everyone leaves pissed off. Is that fair? Does anyone have questions or pushback about this? Those are just the two philosophical ideas I wanted to throw at you. Okay. Um, cool. Then let's get into tactics. That's if you only walk away with two things, it's that fair market value is a weird, murky number that is set by 2 to 3 parties, and that making your client happy is more important than winning them 10 more dollars. If those are your two walkaways, then honestly, this whole class didn't need to happen, but those are still important. Okay. Has anyone gone to business school? That's a relief, because I've only learned all of this secondhand from business school friends and like reading books, but I'm worried someone will have like an MBA at some point and be like, you're teaching this incredibly wrong. That's not what Zopa is. Like, phew, cool. But I mean, you got into real estate, so how well could business school have possibly gone for you? Oh, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Bill,
Hi, Bill. How long you been a realtor?
since late last year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Welcome. Have you been with KW the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay. Late last year. How's it going? You got business?
Yeah, I have a listing right now. It's
Awesome.
that. The guy he has a real estate license,
Okay.
which kind of muddies the waters, if you will.
Yeah, your client does. Why didn't he self-represent?
Because he does property management,
Ah, okay.
so, he's not.
Yeah.
Efficient with buying and selling real estate, and like the day I went out for my listing presentation, he had already put his own house on the MLS. I was like, get your house off the MLS, dude. Yeah, we need to get that off, we need to get the house ready.
Wow.
He took the pictures with his iPhones, the dark blurry, flashing mirror, and that stuff. So yeah, every step of the way, it's almost like, it's just the concept right now and trying to figure out how to talk somebody into doing what is
Mhm.
for the situation when they're,
Mhm.
it's a challenge, especially as a newer realtor, because you don't have your armory set with all the comebacks and really, the responses to their objections and things like that. So but it's beneficial in the sense that it's throwing you in the fire. So
Yeah.
you gotta figure it out.
And I mean, it's a listing. A listing's a listing.
Yeah.
So, awesome. That sounds great. Good work, man. Also, your first deal is with a licensee, which is absolutely bonkers. I can't wrap my head around that.
Everything that I do seems to be the hard way. So my first deals were commercial.
Hmm.
One of them was with.
Oh, the commercial deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhat intimidating, now that fell apart, so.
I neglected to go to we had a meeting where basically we just sat down, Brandon Fugel told us his life story, and I didn't go to it because it was at the same time as my BNI, and I regret that so hard. Why didn't I just skip my dumb BNI? Anyway,
It's funny when somebody told me who he was, I went and kind of did a deep dive on him.
yeah,
It's got an impressive.
he's an impressive guy. My wife definitely has a crush on him after watching the Skinwalker Ranch thing on Netflix. So that's pretty big threat to me. So I was with Keller Williams commercial for about a year and a half, And we do national calls periodically where people can just sort of bring their questions. And I brought up the question like, hey, Brandon Fugel owns this town. What do we do? And they're like, oh, every town has their big agents. Like, I don't think you understand. This guy makes all the money on earth. Like I think he's the highest earning real estate agent on the planet. No?
I don't-
What?
But I mean, it's definitely, you can drive up in L 15 and see his name all over the side. of every
I'm
car.
pretty sure he's in the billions, but if you know differently, I'm willing to be
His,
convinced.
I was just telling them, when I kind of, I went and kind of researched him, his net worth is estimated between 500 and 800.
Oh.
Wait, yeah. Software. He created some software thing that sold for $159 and then decided to get into real estate.
Oh.
That was his. Whatever it was, because now I could be wrong, you could be wrong.
Either way, also, who cares? Okay, so the third thing I want you to leave class with is whoever has the most information about a negotiation is winning that negotiation. And so in this case, let's say you represent a buyer. I like 80% of my business is buyers, so that's what I'm more comfortable with. You've got a house that you like. What information will help you win the negotiation as you prepare to make an offer? Okay. That's perfect. I'm going to call that timeline because it's going to build into a structure later. So seller's timeline. Okay, what else? Okay.
How much they pay out.
I'm going to call this stance. Yeah, stance. And that is, so you look them up at county records, you can often make decent estimates how much they own the place. You can find out how long they've owned it, which gives you the ability to surmise what their interest rate was and to make educated guesses about what they still owe. You can also sometimes find detail on existing mortgages on it. Okay, so I'm calling that, all of that I'm putting under the umbrella of stance. What else? Love that. What disappoints me about that is that's always like my, haha, did you think of this in the class? You're the first time I've ever had an Ignite student actually bring this up. So this is brilliant, and I do this every time. I admit I inconsistently do this. It kind of depends how fast the buyer is moving. In the present market, yeah, I do it because knowing how long they've been in there is great. Finding mortgage information. Microphone, we're back. Yeah, okay. I had that in one of my first sales. The county records were actually incorrect. And then the appraiser came in and it was way smaller than I thought it was. And I was too new and inexperienced to catch it. Like it was way smaller. It was like 500 square feet smaller. So I don't know how to write that. Yeah, you check against like the county records. I admit I don't typically do this. But if I'm in there and something feels off, like there's an addition that it doesn't seem like they've accounted for, then I will check it. This one I'll do sort of an as needed, which is actually fairly rare. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
Part of town, and they still like.
What is stance? What is that one covering?
So this is how long has the seller lived in the home? How much do they owe on the home?
So probably the first thing we'd all do is agencies, what's the CMA. Like, what are the other homes? in
Yep.
the area?
Yep. So a CMA will take into account area as well. And so I think CMA is an excellent blanket. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. Because the CMA that, so I'll always do a CMA on a house before offering on it to determine what I think it's worth. And that sort of helps you get an idea of maybe what the listing agent was doing or where the seller's at. And if your CMA is way off from theirs and you trust it, you know, you did it correctly, something's going on. You might have an intransigent seller or something like that. So I always do a CMA. Excellent.
What about, and this is, you're really deep diving into this, but, any claims against the home from the insurance companies? You can find, was it flooded, was there a fire, were there any claims against the insurance company or the home?
Yes. So that'll be covered PR, and that'll be any title company will do that for you after you go under contract. I think the timing on that is okay. I don't recommend getting PRs pulled for everyone you offer on, but absolutely during the process. I'm gonna narrow our scope a little bit because that was a correct answer, but in this case, I am talking about the pre-under contract process. Because obviously the inspection report and the appraisal are going to happen, but it's not reasonable to get those before making an offer. Okay. The other things I want to stick in here, well, unless anyone else had, you guys have given some really solid answers. So if you got others you want me to throw on here before I seize control back. Okay, so the other thing we want to look at is motivation of the seller. And then this will sometimes come in motivation, but a subcategory of this is what's next? Like, what are they doing with the money? Probably they're buying another house. But if you know, that gives you an idea of what's happening. And then that'll also feed into the timeline. This isn't a class about consultations, but when I do my pre-consultations, my big thing with sellers and buyers is motivation, timeline, ability. With motivation and timeline, that's the same for sellers and buyers. Like, I need to be out by this time, and then motivation is usually some life event or financial event. And then ability for the buyer is literally, do they have the cash or can they get the appropriate loan? And with sellers, it's what's happening with the money when you go. The reason I do ability is because it's easier to remember, but if you're selling the house you live in, obviously you need somewhere else to live. Is that a feasible thing based on what you're doing? And so you want to know the motivation, timeline, and ability of the seller, and of course of your own buyer, which you should know well in advance of this. We all good on that? So from this, oh wait, there's something else you can do here, sorry. With the listing agent, the other thing I like to do is I take all their sales from the last year or 2 years if I need more data, and I will say, how much do they usually concede on their listings? Because if I have, the seller is the shot caller here, but the listing agent obviously has a lot of influence over the seller. And so if I have a listing agent who concedes regularly, comes way down from original list price, then we know there's probably room to prod here. The days on market. Yeah, and CMA covers all that. Okay. So the next business school term that one of you can tell me I'm wrong on is to get this, once you have this information, or it's sort of, this is an ongoing process. It's not like, oh, now I have the information. You're looking for the BATNA for both parties, which is the best alternative to negotiated agreement. If this deal falls apart, what do both parties do next? So if you know that these sellers are having the highly violent divorce with each other and they just want the house gone, that's a very different negotiation than this is an investment property that they'd like to offload. Similarly, if the buyer, their lease is over in 2 weeks, versus they live in a house that is not yet on the market, are two very different negotiations for those buyers, right? That seems self-evident. And so the more information you get, the more accurate the BATNA can be. It's like, oh, we really have these guys over a barrel. And then, haha, choo-choo. Cool. You now understand all the concepts I want you to understand. So let's talk about tactics. Does anyone have any questions so far? This is all the big stuff. Now we're going to get into nitty-gritty little ideas. Okay. I'll erase it if I need the space back. I don't know why I pushed it away. I was just trying to turn it around. Okay. The biggest advice I want to give you is when you're negotiating with other agents, you always want them to think you're their best friend. Whenever I send an offer, I will work as hard as I can for a voice-to-voice conversation with the agent and say, hey, I've got an offer coming your way. Just please let me know when you get it. And if they ask questions about the nature of the offer, great, we'll do that. And I'm going to get into that script a little bit more in a second. But the main thing is be their best friend, laugh at their dumb jokes, tell them, hey, I want you to look like a rock star in this transaction because you want them to be looking forward to the next communication with you. If there are multiple offers in play, which right now is not as likely, but it still happens. If there's multiple offers in play, you want the listing agent consciously or subconsciously to go, man, I really want to take Cody's offer. I remembered it offhand. I just had to check an unrelated thing in my notes. And similarly, when you are at events with other agents, it actually serves you to go like, be nice and be cool. Like networking among agents is far more powerful than you might think, because I did not understand for the first several years of my career. I was like, oh no, I'm cooler than all the other agents and I'm smarter than them. And while those things are objectively correct, it doesn't serve to convey that. Right. And now none of you want to take an offer from me because you know how I think about it. Boom, object lesson. And so really, really, my top advice that is more powerful than anything else we're going to talk about in tactics is be the other agent's best friend. When things start to go mad, like crazy, when you're having a big fight over a roof or a repair, be like, look, man, I know you're doing your best. I'm doing my best. Let's figure this out. We're on the same team. We both want to sell the house. And that's true. You both want roughly the same thing. And so be their best friend. Boom, top tactic. Just a big old heart. And if it turns into more than friendship, well, that's just real estate, baby. There, Cupid's heart. Good job. Wow, I'm such a good teacher. With that said, the entire time you are communicating with the other agent, you should be gathering information. So before you make the call, oh, and I erased a bunch of it like an idiot. That's okay. You actually don't know jack about the seller before the call. You might know their stance. So what's a better way to say that? Financial disposition? That's a better way to say it, right? Home ownership history? Okay, so you can't do this before the call starts. Before the call starts, you absolutely know this about the listing agent unless you're in a hurry for some reason. And you should absolutely know, you should have done your CMA and you should understand the market conditions. There's no reason not to know those before you make the first call. You don't know anything about the seller yet, except potentially their stance. And so then in the call, you're trying to get that information and primarily just keep it simple. You want timeline, motivation, and ability. And so this is if you're asking about a buyer or a seller. And remember, ability, I'm being a little irreverent here. And like, what's next is what that means for the seller. So let's do practice. Who's willing to do a role play with me? Okay. Was that a hand? Okay, cool. So take a second and make up some information about your seller. So the timeline, whatever you want. For the motivation, like 9 times out of 10, more than that. 90 times out of 100, bigger numbers, same ratio. It is very cold, right? it's a life event, birth, death, divorce, or a financial change, which is change of employment, right? So please pick one of those. Don't pick anything super crazy. And then the seller is doing something with the money on they get from the sale afterward. You can be as cagey as you want or as outgoing as you want. Both are very realistic. I have agents of both kinds. Okay, you ready to play? Have you decided who your seller is? Perfect. Okay. Hey, Jed, this is Cavan with Keller Williams. How's it going? So I just toured your, which, so glad you asked. So I had a buyer who just went through your listing in Lehigh. It's gorgeous. Excellent work on the staging. Looks fantastic. They loved it. Even smells good, which is, that's a good extra touch. We have an offer that we want to send in. We're still talking about details, but basically I wanted to ask you, what can I do to make this offer a big win for your seller? Makes sense. I mean, I feel like bottom line is definitely going to be important. It sounds like, is there a timeline issue then too? Like, would a quick closing be a benefit to them? Okay, are they already shopping for other houses? Do they need like a lease back period to do that? Got it. Okay. I guess, would it be of value to them if we gave them like a 30-day lease back? We just want to be a very attractive offer that is easy to accept. Perfect. Okay. Is there anything else I should know? The like concessions they're worried about, anything that we can just help assuage their fears right away? Sure. Fantastic. Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate it. I'm going to talk to the buyers. We should have an offer to you. I'm hoping by tonight. If we give you 48 hours for acceptance, does that work? Sounds good. If you think of anything, go ahead and get in touch. I want to make you look like an absolute rock star for your clients. So thanks. Bye, Judd. And then I haven't held the phone like this since my teens. I mean, even then the phones were like this. I don't know. I don't know why I do this for the phone. What's up?
So what, I'm asking this because, an offer that we got on this listing last week. And, they called me up and they're trying to get information out of me, but I'm super guarded.
Absolutely fine.
So, they're asking me questions and I'm really not giving them what I would think to be any substantial information. Well, we want to write an offer,
Whoops.
great,
Yeah.
See an offer coming in for 440. Well, we don't really feel, I'm like, well, there's a lot of benefits to the home. I understand any home that you look at, it's not gonna be perfect.
Yeah.
And just trying to go back and forth to take away some of that negotiation from.
Yeah. So, Judd here, that was a very realistic phone call. I've had a lot of agents who will sort of give me everything right away, especially if you, if you are friendly to them. A lot of it, disc profile isn't a thing anymore. You guys know red, yellow, green, blue, the color personality profiles. Dang it. Okay, it's garbage science, but basically the idea is that red is bottom line, get to the point. Yellow is friendly, I want to be everyone's friend. I'm very high yellow. S is relationship based, like you want to have deep emotional bonds. And then C, I changed back the letters. Blue is relationship based. And then last color is always white or green. It depends on who you ask. And that is data driven decision making. Real estate agents overwhelmingly are high red or high yellow. And so like with me, I I do attempt to be a good fiduciary, but when an agent calls up like, "What's up, champ? You're hot, cool, Facebook jokes or whatever," they've won. They have me. However, another very realistic thing that I'll get is that sort of guarded, more cagey thing. So
Oh, really nice. Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
But whenever you then start talking about the home, the deal, the client, the motivation.
Yes.
something like
Yeah.
like,
and that's
okay.
perfect. Essentially, you want to do everything you can to build the relationship with the agent without giving away any information that would give them an advantage. And like, again, Judd was very realistic. Agents will absolutely talk to you like that on the phone. Another very realistic one I got is like, hey, do you have any other offers on the property? Oh, the seller hasn't authorized me to disclose that. And that's fine. It's a little bit of a shutdown, but it's also not a bad answer. And then tell me what you can about the seller. Oh, the seller's really excited to sell the home. Like you can still walk that line, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. And in my opinion, that's the most appropriate thing you can do when you're on defense, when you're receiving the call.
But so my question is, from your point of view,
Mhm.
when you get off the phone, you hang up the phone, what do you do with it? Or where do you go next?
Yeah.
Dig up any kind of information that was useful.
So we do know they're doing a move up. We know that they are like slow on the timeline, but might value the.
Something
Oh, I'm sorry.
so I didn't get anything.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Then you just work with the information you have. Yeah, that's there. You can't force them to tell you their seller's life story. What I find is if you build the right relationship with them, that stuff will generally flow later in the conversation. And so but I mean, all you can do is work with the information you have. And so you've done your CMA, you know a little bit about the listing agent. That's what you got. But yeah, excellent question. Okay. Does anyone else have does anyone else want to try a role play or have questions about this process? So let's do this. How are we doing on time? I actually don't know. Oh, we have 40 minutes. No, I'm gonna throw it out to you guys. I do think drilling this is worth your time and role playing this is worth your time. We are not going to get to everything I potentially have to talk about today, but I would rather we go deep on a few things that you become masters of than cover a broad swath. Swath? That's not how you say that word. Swab. I know words. Do you guys want to move on? Do you want to do a quick practice role play? We've got an even number of people in the room, and I can sit here and play on my phone for 3 minutes.
I would like to see how like painted that is just that's kind of closed out.
Love it. It's easier than you think, but let's do it. That was so dismissive the way I said that. I apologize. So let's do it. Who would like to stonewall me? And even be a dick. That's fine. Sure. Okay. You can be friendly or you can be rude. If you be rude, it might even be a better example. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Hold on. You are Bill. Hey, Bill, it's Cavan with Keller Williams. How are you?
Hey, Kevin, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I
Everything's
took
going good for you?
fantastic because I think we might be looking at a deal here pretty soon. I took a buyer through your listing in Lehigh and they love it. We want to make an offer. So I just wanted to ask you, how can I make sure this is going to be a big win for your seller?
Well, my seller just wants to sell the house. It's that time. He's ready to move on, but really, there's no sense of urgency or anything. What did your client like most about the home?
They really enjoyed the kitchen. There's a couple of chefs, and then the master bedroom. The master suite's fantastic, as you know. I couldn't. Did you stage it? Because it actually looks amazing in there.
Actually, client, that's
Yeah.
Does your client have a big family? Because the kitchen is really perfect for family gathering.
I would absolutely love to talk about my client family. Tragically, I'm confined by fair housing. So, but yeah, they are really excited about the kitchen. And so obviously bottom line is going to be important to seller. Is is the timing important? Like if we did a quick closing, is that going to be a value add to the seller?
Like you. Goes down, quick close is always beneficial, but there's no sense of urgency.
Okay, so they don't need extra time in the home to go shopping or anything. Okay, perfect. Cool. If I gave you like a 48-hour acceptance deadline, is that gonna work? Just go over the weekend? It's not over the weekend.
That, I'll tell you what, just send over the offer and we'll get back to you and let you know kind of where we're at.
Love it. If you think of anything that could help make sure that I make you look like a rock star and this is gonna be a big win for your seller, please feel free to text me, but I'm hoping to have the offer to you in about 2 or 3 hours.
Sure.
Cool. Bye, Bill. I love you.
Thanks, Deb.
Cool. That was really good. That was really good. Does that answer your question? We can go even ruder. If someone wants to just totally, because I have had people literally say, I can't disclose that. And I even got about a little bit of timeline out of you too, which I, haha. Yeah.
Of course, you know, and with all my showings, every time they leave the house, I send them an email saying, hey, you know, just let me know what you think.
Mhm.
Mine showings is kind of watered down.
Oops.
It's very basic. So I sent out the email and her response was, well, my client and I both walked through the home, and as we walked through the home, it was kind of wonky and the price is too high. I
Perfect.
said, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry about that, and just kept conversations over with her, finally got her to submit an offer. Her offer was 60,000 below ask with 11 concessions.
That's great, man. I mean, that's a very low offer, but still.
Low offer, I'll present it to my client, and tried to get some information about her client and what was going on. Came back to my client, back to her and said, yeah, no, I'm sorry, that's just way too low. You'll need to bring that number up. My client did counter it, forgot what the license, 415 with the concessions. And after talking to him, he didn't realize, oh, the concessions were on their paper, not his. He was thinking, oh, I can walk away without working. And so she said, no, it's still too high for my client, you know. Everything going back and forth. Finally, she comes up to, well, or she said, did your client, consider our counter, your counter?
Mhm.
I said, yeah, he's not interested. That's far too low for him, but, you know, I'm sorry. I hope, you know, we get the chance to work together.
Mhm.
2 days later, she then emailed me back. We would like to offer 390 with 11 foreign concessions. My client needs the 11 foreign concessions. So right there, I knew her client probably didn't have the best of credit, or she's using that to buy down her loan, but she wants that.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
again, went back and said, no, I'm sorry, this is just too low, and we don't even have a calendar. We'll spoken to this, so, but she was, her, in one of her emails, she was like, well, you can take the solar panels off. We don't care about that.
Honestly, it sounds like you killed it. It sounds like you did a really good job there. So well done. Yeah.
I probably would have asked that buyer as well, like, well, if we did agree on the price, was there anything else wrong with that house?
Yeah.
Is it price difference, or if it's true, like, well, it's
Yeah.
rocky, right, or if that's just a smoke panel? Supposed to be a
Oh, yeah.
throwing stuff out there, but really their main issue was just the price. Like, they love the home, but long to spend.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
being in the home.
Well, and the thing is,
Bedroom, you have a backyard. And it's because, I know why my client's doing it, because he wants it listed as 4 bedroom, not a 3 bedroom with a bonus one. He wants the 440. Much as I've talked to him and shown him CMAs and everything, he says, no, 440, I want room.
well, and that illustrates something really important is when you're the buyer agent and a place is drastically overpriced, more often than not, the listing agent knows it's overpriced. It's occasionally we'll have just not as good listing agents. But the listing agent probably knows it's overpriced and you can kind of use that as a lever. Are we all good on the phone call script? Do you guys want to do a quick practice run? Let's do it. Let's partner up. I've never really tried this before. So the house you're the house you're negotiating, this is pre-offer negotiation. It's a house here in Orem. It's listed at 500,000. You, the listing agent, can make up whatever details about why your seller is selling. It is a life event or a financial event. And whatever they're doing next, to keep it simple, your seller lives in the house and they are planning to buy another house with the money. I just gave the buyer agents a freebie. And then buyer agents also make up a financial or life event for why the buyer is purchasing, and a timeline for them. And you can be as cagey or as forthcoming as you want. Really, it's about getting in the reps. And I have had every level of people gushing and people being really rude to me. It would be hard to be unrealistic in this phone call. So I'm going to pair you two and you two. I'm going to set a timer on my phone for like 5 minutes. If you finish one, start a second one, and I'll come back in 5. I mean, I'm not going anywhere, but.
Offer negotiation, right?
What's that?
Pre-offer.
Yeah, pre-offer negotiation.
So we're just calling each other and feeling each other.
The buyer calling the listing agent to ask about making an offer. Okay. How are you all feeling? I know role plays are a little bit weird, although I've become a huge friggin' acolyte of them recently because they're so powerful.
I guess not to say, but.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the more practice or.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that is going to come from like general process awareness. Like it's Ignite, man. You guys are in a no-win situation because it's like, what are the 7 levers on the Repsy you can negotiate over? And it's like, well, we've never seen a Repsy, so I assume price. But yeah, so the main thing though, the reason I bring that up, you brought it up. I didn't bring it up. The thing about not knowing what to say, the beautiful thing about role plays then is it doesn't matter, right? Because if you're playing with live ammo, it's like your first time ever trying this is with an actual listing agent you're trying to get a deal with. It's like, with good, yes, which was how many of my first phone calls went. So I'm a big advocate of role plays. Let's assume that we have now gotten the initial pre-call out of the way, which I think is very potent. And now we're getting some pushback, right? We're going to keep the house listed at 500 in Orem. You came in at 480 and they are pushing back. Just a best practice thing is try to avoid 7,000 addenda pushing the price up and down a few dollars. There's nothing legally wrong with doing that. It's just annoying and it makes your contract inscrutable and painful. And so try and get verbal understanding before you write stuff down. That's a free tip that is not terribly important. It'll just make your life slightly easier. Someone took a breath.
I did, I reflected on this one on the super well offer, she, that's what we were doing, mostly via email. She
Yeah.
was trying to feel me out, say, in my opinion, at first I was like, just write an offer, I mean, just, give me something hard, and then I started thinking, yeah, but that's a whole lot of paper. Not a real paper guy. So, yeah, let's kind of hash out some of the details now, and then kind of sort of like.
So with the initial phone call, the buyer agent typically is just directly asking questions about the seller. I have never found an alternative to that works. However, everything after that point, there's a joke on the internet that I think is accurate, that if you want help with something, don't say, hey, how do I fix this bug in my code? Instead say, how do I do this? And then post the wrong answer and people will show up to correct your wrong answer. People have an insatiable urge to correct things and you can weaponize this against them. So we've had some pushback and we put in an offer in at 480. and the listing agent just sent flat refusal. They texted no deal. So next, we're going to call up the listing agent, and instead of saying, "Hey, why did your seller reject the 480 or whatever?" We're going to move into soft assumptions. This is where you are going to say, "It sounds like, it seems like." You're going to express uncertainty, but otherwise you're going to make a declarative statement. It says, "It seems like the bottom line is really important to your seller. Sounds like maybe they need the money for a down payment on another property or something." Because what'll happen is generally one of two things. The listing agent knows, oh no, they don't need that down payment for another property. They're paying off a judgment or whatever. They will feel a strong primal urge to correct you. It's like, oh, no, 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 it's not, they're not buying another house. They should not do that. You should not do that. But they will have this natural urge to correct you. And so listen for that, right? And listen if they get weird about it when you're like, oh, it sounds like they need the money for a down payment or something. But if they say, that's right, they probably shouldn't have given you that information either. But now like, boom, got it. That particular piece of information doesn't super change your bargaining position that much. But just as an example, instead of asking questions at this point, we're making soft assumptions and making the other party correct you or confirm or get really weird about it as they try to do neither. So there's your handy little tactic. And then all throughout the remainder of the negotiation, something weird happens with the inspection, and the sellers get really weird about some particular fix, even though it's a $30 fix. So the soft assumption I'd make there is it sounds like the seller feels like they're not being treated fairly, or to dig in and like, why did they push back on this weird item? So questions are over at this point in the negotiation. Now we're making soft assumptions and taking advantage of people really wanting to correct you because people are horrible. When we want to make demands, so we put an offer at 480, our CMA shows that it's worth 480 or maybe 485, and we're being, our buyers being aggressive like that. And they push back either with a flat rejection or they say they counter it like 598. So we want to get them to move, right? They've stated their position, we've stated our position, and there's a gap between them. We want them to move toward us, not the other way around. So the way to do this is take advantage of this relationship you've been building with them and say, cool. So we have our positions. We're not really close enough. Help me make this make sense for my buyer. Like, help me sell this to my buyer. And then they're going to give you whatever information they can to justify their position, or they're going to reveal that they can't justify their position. Either way, you're not agreeing to do anything. You're just saying, help me do this. You're putting yourselves on the same side, and they're like, oh yeah, I will help you justify this to their buyer. Did your buyer think about the fact that the grass is all made of gold leaf or whatever? And maybe you didn't have that information and now you have better information. Or maybe the information they're giving you is, we really can't justify our position. Does that make sense? And so this is an extension of the be their best friend thing, is whenever it's time to fight, it's not a fight. It's you and the other agent need to get on the same team and make it work. And your language needs to reflect that. So it's like, help me make this offer make sense. This counter offer makes sense to my buyer. Or if a buyer comes in with a low offer on your listing, say, look, the seller isn't really going for this. Help me make this work for my seller. Help me sell this, right? I keep saying, help me sell this. It's decent. It's a decent script. So this is all the time. Is that everyone good on that? Okay. Then the last two I want to cover in sort of shallow depth are, I had a deal. It was there's a company that made a big name for themselves putting slogans on billboards, and their opening volley was that every realtor is bad and overpriced. And they made a lot of sales using that pitch. And it irritated me. This company irritated me. And so I knew what they charged for listings, and I had some buyers, and I had a personal rule that I really didn't want any seller to actually save money by hiring this company. And with most of the deals I did with them, this was easy because they sucked at negotiation, they sucked at pricing. It was easy to just come in like, oh my gosh, they're giving a huge discount on this. Let's get them. Because the way that back in the old days, you would put the buyer agent commission on the MLS, and they often would put really low commissions. And so I would go to my buyers and say, hey, will you pay the rest of my commission? You're going to save a lot of money on this house. And then everyone wins, and the seller thinks they saved money on the commission. Good job, seller. So this is all background information. I had a deal, and I did the CMA, I did the math, and I was like, oh no, if we go in, this seller did in fact save money by hiring this company because they're close to market price, and that's where we're at. So we did the inspection. I was like, there's going to be something. There's not. The inspection was so clean. It was a perfect house made of angel butts. And so I was really, for my own dumb ego, I was like, I don't want this to happen. So I talked to my buyer. I said, look, this inspection report's really good. Do you mind if I go after them anyway? And the buyer said, yeah, party on, save us money. And so what I did, I've heard people call this kitchen sinking. I literally send them the entire 40-page inspection report with an email that said, as you can see, there's a lot of problems with the house. Instead of having your seller address every single thing that was found, we would like a $5,000 concession. Oh, and you have to pay my whole commission. So the agent from this company called me that night, and he sort of tore into me. He's like, look, you agreed to take the lower commission when you did, because that's how it worked back then. You agreed to take the lower commission when we were under contract. And he sort of reamed me for like 30 minutes where he's like, oh, you're being unprofessional. You're being a bad person. And I was like, well, jig's up. I lose. There's nothing I can say here. And then the agent just hung up. And the next day they sent acceptance of the terms. He never asked for anything. And I think he was such a pathetic negotiator that he was hoping I would volunteer to withdraw our addendum, which of course I wasn't going to do that. If he'd asked, I would have had nothing to say, but he didn't. And so boom, I got my buyer's $5,000 because this idiot couldn't think to ask me to actually make a demand, right? And so when you're on defense, when they're calling and saying, hey, this term doesn't work or whatever, don't do anything, right? Just listen. Because most of the time, if they know what they're doing, they will make a demand, but then they're setting the benchmark, right? And then you're like, okay, this is the number we're negotiating around. And they set it, even though you might have been willing to agree something way more disadvantageous, right? So when they're calling to attack you, just listen, let them set the terms, because then if they ask for something completely ridiculous, you can say, no, that's ridiculous. But as in this case, if they just give you everything, just quietly take it. And on the other hand, when you're on the attack, when you're saying, hey, these terms are ridiculous, we need to get something fixed. Yes, try and get them to propose a remedy first if you can, but otherwise propose something, like get the negotiation going. Is that good? Right. Does anyone have any questions or want to practice any of these, or want to make me role play so I can show you that I'm not as good at this as I make it sound like? What I'd like to do, if there are no questions about negotiation, we have 13 minutes, and I want to check in on your prospecting and make sure you all have solid action plans. So this is your last chance to ask negotiation questions. You look really thoughtful. Well, you have my phone number, so. Yeah.
What are some not like it's super common things like price, mission, sessions, things like that. You can ask for, because like you said, if you know, I used to be an inspector.
Yeah.
Commercial and residential inspector, so it's hard for me to prove that you had a inspection report, no issues.
I should say it did nothing that was worth raising a stink about.
But
it was $5,000 worth. So.
What are some of the things that
Yeah.
are kind of out and on that you haven't been able to negotiate with?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think my answer will disappoint you. But it's a fair question. So the levers, right, that you have to pull at in the Repsy and some out, but yeah. So, and I'm going to portion these by how much, in my experience, they matter to sellers. Okay. The main thing both parties care about is money. So I am lumping concessions and price. It's the same thing because to the seller, those are the exact same thing. To the buyer, they actually look a little bit different. Is the difference between higher monthly payment and oh my gosh, and lower. like are you willing to give up some of your equity for a lower monthly payment, basically? There's a lot more to be said on that topic, but for now, I'm just going to leave it at that. To buyers, concessions and price are different. To seller, they are the exact same thing. To appraiser, they are different. But this is what they care about. And then next, like, this is a very useful chart, guys. Um, Timing. Now I'm trying to think what else. Duh. Okay. Um, Effort. So, asking the seller to fix something is usually going to be a bigger ask than asking them for a concession in funds, because both parties want the most beneficial financial arrangement for the least effort, and on their timeline. These sizes, I really got away from myself on this one. But I wanted to make the point that price overwhelmingly is the most important item. There's things in here that maybe you haven't thought of. So it is price, obviously, concessions, which is closing costs, which covers the price of the loan, price of title. Your commission is most likely settled here. There's like, what was that? Yeah, warranty. There's pay down. So like rate pay down. And there's definitely other things in here I haven't thought of, although these are the big three. Warranty will come up a lot of the time. Kind of depends on how you operate as a buyer agent. And then this, I thought of this right before drawing the circle, and I'm very proud of it because you're like, oh, look, he's such a genius. He showed us relative importance. Okay, but guys, friggin' ego. Um, I see so many deals blow up over $100, and it's like, okay, clearly it's not about this. And so that the very first thing I pointed out with the zone of potential agreement is way more important than getting them $10 more, is making them feel like they're being treated fairly and that they are getting a good deal. Because mathematically, right, it's whatever, but if they walk away from that happy, that's way better. So ego absolutely trumps money. And this applies to you, the other agent, your client, the other client, like everyone. Ego management is real and terrifying. Other weird levers. The timing includes leaseback, of course. So closing and leaseback. Deadlines. You can, in the 2020 market, when things were going completely nuts, earnest money became a big thing, where people would go. So we'll put this, I don't know how big this circle should be. I just wanted to do the ego twist at the end. And so this is risk, which that ties into deadlines. In 2020, a lot of agents, I didn't do this once, for heaven's sake, they would have earnest money go hard the moment acceptance was issued. So it'd be like $10,000 just for considering our offer, please. And so that's assuming a lot more risk on the buyer that you otherwise wouldn't. I heard a legend of a deal where they connected over Warhammer 40K. And so they put language in sorry, that's a tabletop game where you have plastic soldiers who pretend to fight each other. And so they put in the addendum that they would only, that they wanted them to turn over one of these toy soldiers. And it was like, oh, hey, we have the same hobby. And that's, I cannot, that's apocryphal. I can't confirm that actually happened. I heard it, I believe it, because you could argue it's a subset of ego, is relationships. Which also, on that note, should advise how you talk to your client about the other client. There is a huge difference between, okay, so let's say that we just had the inspection, the roof is shot, and we need $12,000 for a new roof. There's a massive difference between going to your seller and saying, these buttheads want $12,000 for the roof, even though they could see it, duh, right? Versus, oh no, the roof's broken, we need to do something about it. The buyer would like $12,000. So keep your own emotions out of it, because if you make the other client the enemy, then the other client's now the enemy, and you've actually torpedoed your ability to negotiate with them. Because you are your client's eyes. They will never meet the other client. They probably will never meet the other agent. You are everything they can see about the deal. So if they're pissed, you are sending them energy that is making them pissed. And even if you're pissed, take a second, guys. I heard that. But don't make your own emotions part of it. Any other questions? Okay, so we only have 5 minutes. So my question is, I realize at least 3 of you have other jobs, but at some point you're going to have some time to say, okay, it's real estate and time. Do you know exactly what you're going to do to get more business? Like, do you know if you're going to text people? Do you know who you're going to text and what? Okay. Do you mind sharing? Then you might inspire others.
So my background a little bit, I used to sell, so I'm actually pretty comfortable lifting on the doors.
Sick.
So what I did is I just looked up like new listings in the area. And go to that community, so knock on front doors, hey, I'm sure you guys have seen all of them, the real for sale signs going up.
Brilliant.
Thinking about it, you know, about that.
Nice. Thought about doing a giveaway on the doors. That's interesting.
That's kind of my plan, my idea, but I haven't done it.
That's generally called circle prospecting. I'm pretty bad at it, but a lot of agents have built very good careers on the back of that, especially if you have door experience already. I tend to get too sarcastic on the door, like, what's up? I'm here to interrupt your dinner. And they're like, okay, you acknowledging it doesn't change the fact that it's true, though. It's like, oh, you probably hate me. I hate me. So, but so I'm not good on doors. Okay.
Question.
Social media is something I think I'm reasonably good at and have a lot to say about, but it sounds like you've got a decent plan. So I'm gonna let you sit. I'm gonna check on our others. Do you know what you're gonna do next time you're doing real estate time? Okay.
Like have a conversation about real estate with anybody, would you really send me their information so that I can reach out and contact them?
Awesome. Real quick, are you actually doing that? Is that happening? Okay. Okay, great. That's great. I actually agree with that. I don't need a marker. Oh, nice. Okay. I have,
kind of level of daily contact with them. It's a,
I've got two dinky pieces of advice I want to give, maybe three. The general to all of you. I changed my business overwhelmingly when I adopted. I should stop saying numbers because then I think of another thing. I have ADHD, by the way. Could you tell? Okay, so the one thing I did that revolutionized my business and made me way more money is I contact people in the way that I wish salesmen would contact me. In terms of what you're talking about, calling friends, telling them you're in real estate, that is good. And I do not want for a second for you to think I'm saying it's not good, because it is good. What I would modify it with a little bit is I'm guessing late 20s, early 30s, early 20s. Oh, to be in my early 20s again. I'm 40. So the texting and Facebook Messenger, I'm a salesman and I hate answering the phone. And so I'm a big fan of texting. And then the other thing with that is, do you know the Ford thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I would do that as the opening, and then people, when you ask them about their life, they'll ask you about yours. And I was like, hey, I just got into real estate. I'm a big fan of that. But if that's going to, for any reason, slow you down or stop you, don't do it. Because what you're doing is good. For the door thing, I do a lot better on doors when I go with someone, but your mileage, I've never closed one off doors, so don't take my advice. So what I'll do is I'll typically find another agent who's interested in doing circle prospecting or whatever, and then we'll go knocking together, and then just any business we generate, we would co-list. But that has been purely academic so far. Oh, wait, and then so the one thing is contact people the way I wish salesmen would contact me. Big change in my business. The other one, and this applies to when you're on the phone scripting with people or talking to clients or anything, is there's a Taoist concept called Wu Wei, which is non-resistance. I no longer go into conversations with objectives. Like, of course, I want to capture the client, fine, but that's not the objective of this conversation. The objective of every conversation I have with every client and every agent is get more information, be curious. And if that results in us working together, fantastic. If not, off I go. That is extremely counterintuitive to the language of sales and maybe won't even work for you. It has been a huge game changer for me because I'm not nervous to start conversations anymore. Ben, what are you doing with your next real estate time?
Well, I'm just going to contacts.
Okay. And is that happening? Perfect. Then everything I said to him.
So you go in, kind of have a conversation.
Yeah, I guess it's not totally accurate to say I don't have objectives. Of course, I do want to capture clients and appointments and stuff, but I don't attach high importance to the outcome. Yeah, where like, I'm having this Ford call. The Ford calls are literally just to have a good conversation with them. And then I do a separate call, which is what I call a value add. So it's like, let me do a CMA for you. Or that right now I'm building a referral network with people I know. And that's where you can more directly ask for business, that sort of thing. That's the Cavan doctrine. Take it or leave it. You opened are you ready to? Okay. Yeah. 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 I actually just had a big mentality shift on open houses recently because I was talking to an agent who does them very well. And in the old times, the open house was to grab you appointments. And that might happen, but especially because of the new restrictions where you need a BBA to even show a house. It's just way more rare. And you're also in a weird situation because at the open house, you are explicitly representing the listing agent. And so you put yourself in a weird position if you're like, well, let me show you these other houses. It sort of becomes a fiduciary problem. So in the modern environment, what she was telling me, the purpose of open houses is get the information, put them in your database. And the way that has worked, I'm also bad at open houses. But the way that has worked for agents who are doing it is the bribe thing, which is I would do like raffles and stuff at the open house, like, hey, give me, write down 2 sentences about what you thought of the house, and then give me your information so I can send you an Amazon gift card. Boom, in your database. Got them. I love the idea of doing a giveaway at people's doors. I've never tried it, but I think it's fascinating.